And so another thing that you might think about, because most young people do think about this, is what is it that you can do in order to aid the world, let's say, like you might if you were thinking about being an environmentalist. Well, as far as I can tell, the one sure route to aiding the world is to clean up your existential space. First of all, you're not telling anyone else what to do. That's a big plus. And second, well, the more you do that, the more you're going to be able to do things. You know, and so you might think, well, if you're going to clean up the world, you might start by cleaning up your phenomenological space and see how far you get with that. It's a very difficult thing to do, but if you do it, the better you get at it, the more capable you are of handling larger and larger problems, and that's how you should start. You should start with what's right in your grasp and with what you can control, and that enables you to practice. Now, and here's an offshoot of this. This is an existential offshoot. So here's a hypothesis. So you imagine the existentialists continually claim, unlike the psychoanalysts, that people are psychopathological not because, say, of childhood trauma or neurosis or repression or failure to integrate elements of the id into the ego. The existentialists claim that the reason that people are psychopathological is because the conditions of existence are so tragic that it's inevitable that people become psychopathological. Right, and that's, okay, so what's the argument? Well, people are self-conscious, so that's a big problem. So, and because we're self-conscious, we know that we're going to die. We're aware of our temporal limitations. So that's a real catastrophe, because no other animal has that problem. Like elephants look like they've got some kind of a dim apprehension of it, but they're not articulate, so they can't really get to the final stage of, you know, assessing their existence in relationship to its finitude. And of course everyone knows that they're prone to illness of all sorts and aging, and that, you know, so is everyone else they know, and that you can be damaged incomprehensibly by untruth and by falsehood and by betrayal, you know, and also that there's 150 things wrong with you that you're acutely aware of at almost all times. So you fall short of perfection along pretty much any axis of comparison that you wish to generate. And so the existential point of view on that is that all of that's enough to make the default condition of human beings psychopathological. It's like the weight of existence itself is sufficient to make normal pathological. And it's a very powerful argument, because one of the things you might ask, and it's certainly something I've asked when I've dealt with people who have agoraphobia, for example, who are afraid to go out. You know, they're afraid to go out because they might have a heart attack, and then they'll be too far away from the hospital, and then they'll die. Well, they make fools of themselves. That's basically the agoraphobic sphere. So it's biological mortality plus social exposure, right? It's bad enough to die, but if you die in public while everyone's looking at you, then, you know, you get the worst of both worlds. And it is, to me, it's not such a mystery that people are agoraphobic. It's a mystery that other people aren't. You know, and from the existential point of view, the mystery starts to become the ubiquity of normality, given the intolerable conditions of existence. It's a much more powerful viewpoint, and I think it's correct too, because there's no reason to assume that the default condition of mankind is like calm, rational acceptance of fate. It's like you have to have very, very specific conditions that you're in before you're calm and you know, feeling comfortable and sort of hopeful about the future. It's like that's a rare state to achieve. We can assume that's normal, at least to some degree in our society, because it's unbelievably technologically sophisticated, and we're not hungry that often, we're not cold that often, or, you know, or even sick that often. But to think of that as the norm, it's like, no, definitely not. It's a miracle that it's ever like that.